Good morning. Good morning. Happy, what is today? Wednesday? Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Hope everybody's doing well. Got to get my days straight. I can't remember what is what. Thank you guys for joining in, participating in this live stream today. Today we're talking about real estate news, and actually we're talking about the landmark housing bill clears Congress, going to the president's desk. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what that means. What does that actually mean? Hope everybody's doing well. Let's see. Where do I begin? I always start off this show just with a little bit of like, hey, about me and kind of what I've been up to and that kind of stuff. And then we get into actual, the meat of it, just so we can have some common ground. Maybe we get to know each other a little bit. So come and hang out for just a few minutes as I talk about what I've been up to. So let me start off with just saying this. Yesterday, I did not have a live stream for a very, very good reason. So the company I work for, principal broker and owner, we had a flag dedication ceremony for him. Actually, it was a flag dedication for our office that we were raising a flag to. But what he didn't know is it was in honor of him because he has served 40 years in the military. 40 years. And this year in September, it comes to an end. So we surprised him that really, even though the whole company and the cities that were around us that we serve in and that kind of stuff were in on it, they knew they were there to honor the man, obviously honor the flag, but really we were honoring this man. And it was a time where we got together. We had mayors speak, give city of keys to the cities, and presentations of coins and the color guard or the honor guard and everything. It was an amazing event. It was an amazing event to honor a man that has served 40 years for his country. It was great. It was very touching. I was honored to be a part of it. A great event. Everybody showed up, family, friends, agents, company. I mean, you name it. It was a great experience. And it did seem like we blessed him tremendously. And to be honest, it was great. I owe a lot to this man. My career is what it is because of this man. So Steve, if you're watching, I greatly appreciate you, my friend. I really, really do. I have a lot of respect and admiration for you. You've been a great mentor, great leader, excellent friend. So it was a great day yesterday. I really, when I was speaking, I tried not to get emotional. I actually kind of wrote the speech out where it was more like pointing on not too much of the emotional stuff because I didn't want to get up there and cry. I just didn't want to do it. And I told myself, I'm not going to look at him when I make the announcement about what we're there for. And then he got emotional when I said that and I looked at him. So then I got emotional and, whatever. Whatever. Human emotion's good, okay? I mean, it's good. It's just, I don't like to display it. It's not my thing. But I did because it was a good moment. So anyway, that's what we did yesterday. That was all day yesterday. It was just amazing. So it was great. So thank you to everybody that's watching that was participated in that, helped us make that happen. Everybody that made that come together, thank you. It was great. It was amazing. So with that being said, before I even get into the show, let me touch on what I will be talking about in today's show. And then we're going to talk a little bit about soccer just because it's in my world right now. It's what I'm watching. It's what I'm engaged in. It's what I'm learning about. And this is, if you know anything about me, and maybe you do know something about me now. If you come here regularly, you know me a little bit. And I love research. I love learning and I love digging into things. Even some of the weirdest things that make no sense to get into, I will research out just to know. And I've always been this way from a very young age, very curious, very inquisitive. And I just like to find out things. And right now I'm on this big soccer FIFA World Cup thing and just trying to understand it all and work it all out. So I'm going to talk about that. You're just going to have to bear with me. Even if you don't like soccer or football, you just got to bear with me. It's my live stream and this is what I'm doing right now and it's just going to be part of it. I can't help but talk about it. But first, let me tell you what we're going to be talking about today. So what I will be doing once we get started on this show, we will be talking about the landmark housing bill where it cleared Congress, an overwhelmingly bipartisan bill that has been talked about for months, over a year, and has now passed Congress, going to the presidential desk, and he is likely to sign this thing. We're going to be breaking down what that actually means. That's the first thing we're going to talk about. I've only got 3 articles today, so just not too bad, okay? So not too bad. Doesn't mean it'll be less than an hour, though. I'm just going to say that. Legal pitfalls. The next one I'm going to talk about is legal pitfalls every home seller should know. This is an article by MSN, and it's actually really good. So this is good knowledge for real estate agents, but it's really good knowledge also for homeowners that own a home that are thinking about selling it, or pretty much anybody that owns a house and think through things that you want to take care of on your home. So this article will be a very broad topic that we can kind of talk about. And then we're going to end with a very short kind of topic about AI and what that looks like. And Fello is a company that is AI generated. I think it has to do with leads and cultivating leads and what that looks like. It's an article by Inman. It's an interview. It says Fello's co-founder sees abundance, not doom, in real estate AI. And we're just going to have a brief conversation kind of about this interview. And it is kind of important to think through some of these things in regards to this. So those are the 3 articles we're going to be talking about today when I get to the show. But first and foremost, has nothing to do with real estate. Like I said, we're going to be talking about soccer. So just because it's on, and here's the thing too, guys, like it has been a fun journey for soccer, because it is in America. It's being hosted. All the games for the World Cup are hosted in Canada, America, and Mexico. And that's awesome. And that has made it where I wanted to know more about it. The second thing that has just been really exciting to watch is all these visitors from all these different countries coming into our country, America, and just appreciating what America has to offer. And the most fascinating thing about this is, and you might have seen this, and if not, go to YouTube or TikTok or wherever you're watching and type in Europeans and foreigners react to America. And you will see overwhelming videos of people just coming into our country and appreciating what we have and how we operate and what we give and what we do and how the people are. I will say this: if you want to be refreshed in knowing what America is, watch these videos. It will bring back a sense of pride for your nation, because they are seeing it through the lens of new, and they're looking at it through the lens of what they had been told originally, their media and what their media tells them about us and everything. And they're coming to the conclusion that a lot of what they've been told is not true. It doesn't mean everything they've been told is not true, but overwhelmingly what they have been told that we are like, they're finding out that we're not. And that is great. So on the surface, this is not just about soccer. It's about people. It's about the world. It's about how people get along and how we relate to one another and how we can develop preconceived ideas based on what other people are saying about someone or a country. And until we fully experience that country ourselves, we will not truly know what it's really like there. And that's even a warning to us Americans, that just because the media says XYZ is happening in a country, or somebody else might have a different opinion about what it's like over there, it doesn't mean that is what that country is, right? And we need to keep that in mind. And the World Cup has made that very evident to me. So it's not just about soccer. It literally is about the world kind of coming together. Yeah, it's a sporting event, but it's exposing and breaking down some of these barriers that people's opinions a lot of times set up. And that's a dangerous thing. And I think that's what I'm seeing in the European nation when they're coming over to America and all their comments and their videos. Australia and New Zealand and pretty much every country that makes a video about America, they're saying they've been lied to. They've been lied to. So I say all that, just that's the fascinating thing about soccer. But now let's just quickly, I'm sorry, I'm going on about this, but let's just quickly talk about just where everything stands in the World Cup, okay? You might not even care. That's fine. That's fine. And it might not even be interest to you. But let me just say this. USA is playing Thursday, okay? If we go to the schedule here, they're playing Thursday night. I'm going to promote them because, hey, it's American. They're playing against Turkey. Even if you don't know how all this works, they have clinched their group. They're going on to what they call the knockout round. So in other words, this group thing is where you can play and lose and you get points, whatever. Top 2 teams, possibly the third team in that group, go on to the knockout round. And that's when the tournament truly does begin. That's when it starts playing, right? Because if you lose, you're out. There has to be a winner in every single one of those games to advance. So that's when the competition really just ramps up. But right now, we've got America playing Turkey at 10 p.m. on Thursday. So 10 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. It's in Inglewood, California, SoFi Stadium. That's where they're playing at. They're playing against Turkey. So go check them out. 10 p.m. That's where they're playing at. But these are the standings right now. You got multiple groups. And the way this works, your top two finishers in each one of these groups go on to the knockout round. So when you see that, and you see these top two teams, chances are that's who's advancing. Now, it doesn't mean they've clinched it yet. America has clinched it, by the way. They are going to the knockout round. They've won their past two games. At this point, everyone else in their group has lost and had struggles. They are going on. But this has not been fully decided yet. So we're coming towards the end of this group thing, right? It's getting really, really close. So so when you look at these standings here, this is the group standings right now, right? So we've got number 1 in Group A, Mexico. B is Canada. Group C is Brazil. Group D, United States. Group E is Germany right now. Yeah, it looks like they're going to probably clinch it. Netherlands, Egypt. I think this is a really close contested group right here. Group H is Spain. France is probably the favorite to win. So those that are watching from France, man, you guys got a killer team. Amazing. Argentina is another amazing team, right? You got Lionel Messi in there. Then Colombia, and then England. So there's your kind of your top thing. And it says positions 1 and 2 advance to round of 32, which is your knockout. Position 3 means best 8 advance. And then position 4 is eliminated. Okay, so there is a chance that some people in position 3 advances on. I couldn't help but talk about it, guys. I know you don't care. This is a real estate show. Everybody's probably like toning me out, like, what in the world? This guy talks about real estate. He's here talking about soccer. Yeah, this is before the show, and it's what I'm into. It's what I'm researching. And it's a fascinating thing to learn. I will say it is fascinating to learn. All right, there you go. There's your soccer update. All right, let's jump into this show now, guys, and we'll get started on the actual articles. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm sorry for the bunny trail. Welcome to the Real Estate Brief. I'm Adam. Today, we're going to be cutting through the noise. We're going to get to the truth that we can find in the news. We're going to look at the data, and I'm going to give you some of my observations and where I believe you can find opportunity. If you're ready to gain your real estate edge, let's dive into our very first story. And this one is going everywhere. Every single news source out there that if you typed in housing bill, they've run an article on this. And rightfully so. This is the first time that this bill, that we've had any kind of bill and legislation change a major housing situation since the 90s. Okay, so it's monumental. It was a very hard thing to get through the House and Congress and now get to the presidential desk. Very difficult. And there's like 50 different things inside of this piece of legislation. And we will not fully, let me just set the stage here just a little bit. We will not fully understand all the ramifications of what this bill does for a while. So as much as we can celebrate a lot of these type of things, we got to understand that there are 50 individual proposals packed into this massive bill. Each one is going to have a different effect on the economy as time goes by. I don't think we're going to see any drastic things happen immediately. Most of it was kind of micro changes that have long-term effects. It sets us up from 5-10 years from now that will ultimately benefit housing and hopefully affordability. But let's keep it in perspective. It is a federal bill. It can change a lot. It doesn't mean anything drastic could possibly happen here, but it does build a much stronger foundation for us. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and read through this very first article. And this one here is, I instead of going to any kind of news source, I went straight to the National Association of Realtors website to get their report on this, just because they have a tendency to kind of give just the facts, and that's what I want. I don't want people's Democratic or Republican or any of their opinions. I just want to know what's really going on. And one thing that I will advocate for with the National Association of Realtors, and if you're a realtor, you know this, is they have a wing called RPAC, and they do lobbying stuff for certain types of bills and keep their finger on the pulse about what's going on in our industry, to not be there just for agents. No, they are there for the consumer. They are there to advance and promote the housing industry overall for all people. And that's what they advocate for. They were very instrumental in talking to politicians and bringing this to the forefront to make this bill even possible. So we need to applaud when good things happen. And this is where the National Association of Realtors RPAC committee has done an excellent job helping something very difficult to get through. So let's applaud that. And now let's read through kind of what they're talking about, okay? And what this actually means. All right. It says NAR helped drive the most significant housing legislation in nearly 20 years. The bill now heads to President Trump for signature. We talked about that. Congress passed landmark housing affordability legislation Tuesday, advancing one of the most significant federal housing packages in nearly 2 decades. The 21st Century Road to Housing Act moved forward on a House vote of 358 to 32. It now heads to President Trump, who's expected to soon sign the measure into law. The legislation is the culmination of nearly 2 years. That's a lot of time, guys. This is not just something they kind of drafted and all of a sudden it has been kicked around a ton. I have talked about this multiple times, right? I mean, it's been a long time coming. And nearly 1.5 million members helped make this happen. During that time, NAR worked closely with lawmakers in both parties, holding thousands of meetings with members of Congress and their staffs, commissioning original research and public opinion polling, launching targeted calls for action, and providing technical expertise on housing policy solutions. This sounds like a promotional piece just for NAR, but look, they did do everything that they're saying. Let's not minimize this. Yes, they are touting their own horn, and it's rightfully so. It's rightfully so. They were relentless in pushing this forward, and they did an excellent job articulating the facts and even going back to the drawing table when they felt like maybe they did get a little bit off and reformatting it. They were so active and instrumental in this. That's a huge amount of value. NAR members helped deliver the final push toward passage last week when nearly 8,000 realtors traveled to Washington, D.C. for the realtor legislative meetings. During hundreds of meetings on Capitol Hill, realtors urged lawmakers to move the legislation across the finish line. It says, "We are deeply grateful for the leadership and commitment shown by members of the House and Senate, as well as the White House, to do something big on housing affordability," says Shannon McGann, NAR Executive Vice President and Chief Advocacy Officer. "This is the most significant housing legislation to pass Congress in nearly 20 years. At a time when affordability remains one of the nation's greatest challenges, lawmakers came together in a bipartisan way to advance solutions that will help communities build more homes, expand housing opportunities, and strengthen pathways to home ownership. This achievement is a testament to realtors across America who engaged in the process, shared their expertise, and made their voices heard," McGann says. "Housing is a bipartisan issue." Amen. "Every community in America is feeling the effects of our housing shortage, and this legislation reflects what can happen when lawmakers work together to address real challenges facing American families." And as much as we can stop and applaud NAR, and we should also applaud our actual physical government. They came together over an issue with bipartisan approval on this bill, and that deserves to be applauded as well. This is when democracy works. This is great news, okay? That we can rally behind one of the most pivotal, concrete, foundational principles of what makes America great is home ownership and owning a home. That is American dream, and it's tangible. And for them to address this with a massive bill, bipartisan, is just a win for our country, okay? This is a win. This is why this matters. The legislation comes at a critical time for the housing market. After more than a decade of underbuilding, NAR estimates the United States faces a housing shortage of approximately 4.7 million homes. The lack of available inventory has driven up prices, limited options for buyers, and made homeownership increasingly difficult for many Americans, especially first-time home buyers and generational buyers. It says the shortage is particularly acute for middle-income households. According to NAR research, roughly 310,000 homes priced at $261,000 or less are missing from the market. There's a significant percentage of people that would love to buy a home, and that's where they would land in. Okay, that is the missing market. That $261,000 means the median income justifies a $261,000 home. We need more homes in that price range. Okay, that's the point that they're making here. All right, the NAR's road to road. The path to final passage of the 21st Century Road to Housing Act was long, but it demonstrates how major legislation is built and how sustained advocacy can produce meaningful results, McGann says. Our work on this bill spanned two NAR presidents, Kevin Sears and Kevin Brown, both of whom testified before Congress in support of the measure. All right. The final package combines nearly 50 individual housing proposals addressing housing supply. So here's kind of getting into the meat a little bit here, guys. So this is where we pay attention a little bit more. It's going to address the housing supply, affordability, financing, zoning, workforce development, fair housing, property rehabilitation, and other housing challenges. And they are engaged in every component of the legislation, providing research, policy recommendations, technical expertise, and real-world perspectives from housing markets across the country. All right, so that's what it is. Advocacy wins in the final bill. Measures to increase housing supply. So here are brief synopsis of the things that they've addressed to directly talk about housing supply, okay? And I'm not going to read all the section numbers. We're going to skip that for redundancy. But housing supply frameworks directs the Department of Housing and Urban Development to develop zoning and land use best practices to help communities remove barriers to housing development. In other words, if there is zoning that doesn't make sense, they've cut through a lot of the red tape that made it so difficult to rezone properties. So now you can quickly get a rezoning done in time that can transfer something maybe from a commercial into a residential. Maybe it was an old mall that they want to convert into residential properties. This happens, right? The red tape is being removed a little bit to make this easier. Increasing housing and opportunity zones, prioritizing HUD grants that support housing construction and preservation in opportunity zones. Okay, so still talking about zoning, still talking about red tape that would basically constrict a market from being able to grow. The Whole Home Repairs Act supports grants and forgivable loans to preserve and stabilize aging housing stock. Now, right now, I'm going to burn through these because we don't have a lot of time. And as we go through this, as the years go through on this live stream, this will keep coming up. And we're going to be talking about these effects that each one of these measures has on our economy. Okay, so we'll be breaking this down over time. It says affordable housing construction eligibility allows community development block grant funds to be used for new housing construction. So to build new homes, there's grant money. Build Housing Act streamlines environmental reviews to reduce delays and encourage housing development. Again, cutting through the red tape that boggles down development because of some kind of environmental issue, because you got to go talk to so-and-so, to so-and-so, to so-and-so. You have all these regulations, all these type of things that keep you from being able to do so. This is going to remove some of those things. Unlock housing supply through streamlined reviews. Simplifies federal reviews for small and infill housing projects. Grants for housing planning and implementation. Helps state, local, and tribal governments plan for and support housing growth. Innovation Fund provides flexible funding to communities expanding housing supply and supporting infrastructure. Accelerating Home Building Act encourages pre-approved housing designs and faster local permitting. Reside Act supports converting vacant and abandoned buildings into housing. Housing Affordability Act increases Federal Housing Administration multifamily loan limits to better support affordable housing development. You guys get the idea here? I mean, there is so many things inside of this article, inside of this bill, right? Measures to expand access to home ownership, FHA small dollar mortgages. It says it creates a pilot program to expand access to mortgages of $100,000 or less. In other words, there's an incentive for banks to give a smaller loan on properties, right? There's a win here for FHA programs. Creating incentives for small dollar loan originators. Examines barriers to originating small dollar mortgages. Helping More Families Save Act encourages savings and economic mobility to support future home ownership. I mean, we could go on and on and on about this. There's so much in here. Military service question helps ensure veterans are informed about available VA home loan benefits. Housing Unhoused Disabled Veterans Act. Measures to expand access to capital. Community Investment and Prosperity Act increases banks' capacity to invest in affordable housing. American Access to Banking streamlines bank formation and reviews restrictions that may limit capital access. There is so much in here, right? Promoting new bank formation to support veterans, right? There is so much. I'm so much to unpack in this bill. And what I plan on doing is kind of taking a little at a time, going through this little by little as we as we go through the next few months talking about this bill. There will be a lot of news articles talking about this. And let's be honest too, there's going to be a lot of negativity that comes out of this. Well, this does this and this does that. And let me just say this is there's always going to be that. Sometimes you have to like blow some things up, deregulate some things to find out what's working, what's not working, and then be able to address those things to maybe be able to fix the problem. If you just carry on and you don't address things like this, then it just lives on forever and it doesn't ever get better. That's not the right way to do it. So this is a really, really good first step. Where does it land, right? I don't know. We don't truly know where everything's going to go with this, but I do know there will be change. And from when you read through this, it's going to be pretty significant change. And a lot of it has to do with freeing up capital, making banks a whole lot easier for them to be able to make loans for lower mortgages. It then incentivizes builders to then start building. And there's also more grants for cities, and there's deregulation of zoning. So those things alone open up a lot of business. It encourages builders to build. So these top measures might seem kind of small, but when you compound them, they make significant differences. And there's other things in here too we didn't talk about, but there's also in here the verbiage where large investors can't go in and buy up swaths of residential properties in an area, therefore knocking out the private sector from being able to buy homes. There's regulations inside of there to protect that. So there is a lot here. So like I said, we will be breaking this down as time goes on. That gives you an idea. This was passed. That's the report for now. Obviously, I could go into more and more details about this. I don't want to do that. I think each one of them, as we kind of go through, makes more sense to kind of take our time through that. Here's the thing. This bill is available for you guys to read. I encourage those out there, take some time. And here's where AI, to be honest, in my opinion, AI just excels. AI is great at analyzing data. So here's something you could do. You could take the bill, the entire document, an entire bill, and upload it to Gemini, ChatGPT, and say, can you summarize the important details of this bill for me? And let it just extract that and just kind of begin reading through that extraction, because the bills are thousands of pages long. I mean, if you really just want to sit down and read it, go for it. It's got a ton of legal jargon in there, and it can be very boring. But this is where AI is excellent. So I encourage you guys to get onto AI, go check it out, upload it, get some information from it, and be educated about what this all can mean. Okay. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our second article for today. This is for every homeowner out there, every person that's thinking about selling their house, and every real estate agent out there listening. This is literally for the housing industry, because this article here is by MSN. And it's legal pitfalls every home seller should know. All right. And this is very true. And this is very national. Okay. There are some nuances when you get into the local level and on a couple of these things, but overall, most of these things are very nationally relevant. Okay. So this will apply to anybody, no matter what state you're in. Again, I'm not going to speak legally for every state, but according to this article, in my state, this is very relevant. All right, so let's get into this now. All right, this, and just so you guys know too, is every single one of these articles that I go over are posted in the description of my YouTube channel video for this live stream. So you can go to the Real Estate Advantage, YouTube, the Real Estate Advantage, look for my picture or whatever, go to the live stream, and you'll find today's live stream. And all these links, if you want to go back and read through these or make notes, you can. It's all on there. So you go check them out if you want to. But this link is in there as well. All right. Legal pitfalls every home seller should know. Home sellers in the U.S. face a range of legal obligations, from disclosing known defects and environmental hazards to honoring repair agreements and respecting contract terms. State and federal laws govern what must be revealed, with penalties for fraud, misrepresentation, or breach of contract. Understanding these requirements helps prevent disputes, protect buyer rights, and reduce the risk of costly lawsuits. And here's the thing too, and before we even get into this, I will pause for just a second, is as on my side of real estate, being a broker, I get calls every single day in regards to these topics we're getting ready to discuss. So I implore you agents that are listening to really pay attention to all these things and make sure you understand what needs to be disclosed, how to disclose it, and what this looks like. I get a ton of questions about this. And if you want to get into trouble as a real estate agent, neglect these things. Because when I see an agent get into trouble, legally, ethically, or whatever, most of the time, it's going to revolve around one of these 17 things, okay? So just keep that in mind as we go through this. Pay very close attention to these things and learn everything you can about this. Your continuing education classes that you take talk about these type of things all of the time. Now, I am not a legal advisor here at all. I'm not an attorney or anything. I'm reading an article and I'm speaking from experience. Anything that this article says or anything that I say, take it to your local broker or legal. This is me, giving my observations on an article, going through the common pitfalls and reading this, but do your due diligence, okay? Do your due diligence. All right. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the very first one. It's a slideshow here. All right. Sellers must disclose known material defects. Known material defects. In U.S. real estate transactions, sellers are legally required to inform buyers about any known material defects that could impact a property's. Now, here's the thing. A material defect is anything that's going to affect its value, its safety, or the structural integrity of that property. Okay? If the seller knows about it, you are to disclose it. If you as an agent find out about it, you are to disclose it, right? Because foundational issues, walls cracking and leaning in, and roofs collapsing, these are material defects of a property. They affect the value, the safety, and the structural integrity of that property. We are required to disclose those things. These defects can include roof leaks, foundational cracks, plumbing, or electrical problems, and other significant issues. Disclosure laws aim to protect buyers from hidden risks and reduce the likelihood of legal disputes after the sale. As agents, if you're going into a listing interview and they're filling out the seller disclosure and you notice a material defect, you need to bring it to the seller's attention and tell them that's got to be on the seller disclosure. You are required by law to disclose that, and then you are required to disclose that. Now, they should probably get it fixed. If it's something that it's within their means to do so, they should probably fix it, but you are required to disclose it. That's number one. I don't know. There's an ad. You want a roaster? You want a coffee roaster? There we go. Undisclosed property defects can trigger buyer lawsuits. Sellers are legally required to disclose known significant property defects that are not easily visible. Now, this is the other thing too. I have seen this happen where there's been like a leak in the wall. A more recent example would be we had our agent represented a buyer of a property. Another agent had the seller. I don't think the agent knew about it at all, but I find it very hard that the seller didn't. But there's a possibility that they didn't, but I don't know. But the dishwasher had been leaking for a long time. Behind the sink, when you open up the cabinet doors, the entire back wall of the cabinet was eroded and rotten out. Behind the dishwasher was rotting out. The floor joists underneath everything was rotting out, causing even the below the sink to sink in. That was not disclosed. It was not told to the buyer. And oddly enough, the home inspector missed it. So you talk about a lawsuit, right? That would bring it on. They closed on the property, and now we have this structural big defect that ultimately cost the buyer that bought the home a lot of money to fix. So what do you think they did? Right? So we should be going through and checking some things. The seller should absolutely be doing that because it's going to come up. Don't hide it. Do not hide these things. If a buyer later discovers such a defect and can prove the seller knew about it but failed to disclose it, they may sue for damages. Yep, we see this all the time, guys. Successful claims often hinge on showing the defect was not detectable through a standard inspection. That's usually how it works, right? Now, and we had this happen too, where mold and stuff like that is inside the walls and not visible on the outside whatsoever. There would have been no way for anybody to have known without of taking the drywall down and seeing it. Buyer bought it, tore out the drywall to do some kind of remodeling, found all kinds of mold. That's a case where they could argue it, but They'd have to have good evidence that that seller or agent or inspector knew that it was there. That'd be a hard thing to prove. So that's the difference, right? Federal law requires lead paint disclosure. Under U.S. federal law, sellers must disclose any known lead-based paint hazards for homes built before 1978. This requirement helps protect buyers from the serious health risk linked to lead exposure. Lead can cause long-term health problems, particularly for children and pregnant women. Yes, if you know, even if it's been painted over or whatever, if the homeowner knows that there is lead-based paint present, even if painted over, if they know it was there at one point, they are to disclose that. There are documents. There's a family protection flyer pamphlet that you hand out as an agent. That needs to be honest, it is never a bad idea just to throw that pamphlet inside of your listing presentation. Who cares, right? Even if it's not a 1978 home, it doesn't matter if that pamphlet's in there or not. Put it in there as a default thing so you don't miss giving it to them. Buyers and everybody. Just throw it in there, right? Send it with all the documents. It doesn't hurt anything. But we are required to disclose that. States often mandate disclosure of environmental hazards. And most states do have this. In many U.S. states, home sellers must disclose known environmental hazards such as asbestos, radon gas, or mold. These substances can pose serious health risk and may reduce a property's value. Disclosure laws help protect buyers by ensuring they are aware of potential safety issues before completing a purchase. Radon is really popular in our area. We have a lot of it. We got a lot of underground cave systems in our state. So radon is a very big thing. And these are things that do come up. So check your state laws, find out what the laws are, and abide by them. But it makes sense that most states would have these laws. Got to disclose it. The number one reason your electricity bill is that's an ad. Environmental hazards can lower property value. Sellers in the U.S. are legally required to disclose known environmental hazards. I think, isn't that the one I just read? It's in there twice. There we go. State laws differ on real estate disclosures. Okay, and this is true. All states have different requirements for what home sellers have to fill out and what they don't. You need to know that. Like if you don't know that for your state, go talk to your broker, talk to the real estate commission, find out what those requirements are and follow it accordingly. All U.S. states require home sellers to disclose known material defects, but the level of detail varies. Some states mandate comprehensive disclosure forms covering a wide range of property conditions, while others permit more limited information. It's also subject on the type of property. Like certain states will have different requirements for residential versus commercial versus industrial and so forth, right? So that's another thing you need to make sure you're aware of. These differences mean sellers must consult their state-specific requirements to ensure compliance. Yes, you need to disclose. You got to have a seller's disclosure, okay? Okay, Washington law protects existing buyer rights. Under RCW 64, whatever, Washington law specifies that real estate disclosure requirements do not reduce or eliminate any rights or remedies a buyer already has under common law, statute, or contract. The statute also clarifies that it does not create new rights beyond the limited right of rescission provided within the chapter's time limits. If you're in Washington, make sure you know what that means. Another ad. All right. Concealing known home defects can be fraud. Okay. When you see the word fraud, that's a big one, guys. Okay. So let's really put this into perspective. For you agents out there, if you know something and you conceal it, it could be known as fraud. Intentionally hiding a known defect, such as a painting over water stains to mask a roof leak, can be considered fraud in real estate transactions. If a seller knowingly misleads a buyer about a material issue with the property, the buyer may have grounds for legal action. Proving fraud typically requires showing the seller acted deliberately. Now, that's the biggest thing, right? Deliberately disguising the material defect to conceal it from the buyer would be where the fraud could come into the argument. The buyer relied on the false impression and suffered financial harm as a result. But it could be considered fraud, guys. It could go that far. This is not just an easy issue. This is very serious. It's very serious stuff. False statements during home sale can lead to liability. Sellers can face legal action if they make incorrect verbal statements to buyers about the property or neighborhood. Even casual remarks, if proven false, may be grounds for a lawsuit. To reduce risk, sellers are advised to let their real estate agent handle buyer communications. Let me just pause here, guys, because when we start talking about other conversations, excuse me, when we talk about like AI helping people, we talked about this two days ago in my live stream about where AI helped these homeowners sell their properties. AI is not present, and you are not trained to represent yourself correctly when it comes to legal issues. If I want to go back and look at case law where sellers get in trouble doing things on their own, it falls into this category. You do not understand the legal ramifications of misrepresenting your property and what trouble you can get into by making false statements. You do not understand that. Real estate agents are trained every single year. Most of them are trained every single month in regards to these things. Okay, this is what we do the most training in, is to make sure that we are working inside of the legal framework to protect ourselves, the consumer, and our client, the one we owe fiduciary responsibility to. So when you start talking about doing it on your own, all this kind of stuff, man, it is a legal minefield, guys. It's a legal minefield. Kevin, good morning to you from Lakeland, Florida. Good morning to see you, my friend. Thank you for being here. As always, greatly appreciate you taking the time. So don't negate it. Don't negate it. All right, fraud claims require proof of intentional misrepresentation. It's going into the fraud thing. It's hard to get it to go all the way that way. I will say I have hardly ever, I can't even think of a time where I've seen it go to fraud because it's really hard. Court system does not want to go into like the fraud category with somebody that owns a home and misrepresentation, that kind of stuff, but it could happen. It says, in real estate transactions, proving fraud involves more than showing a defect exists. Buyers must demonstrate that the seller knowingly made a false statement about the property's condition, intended for the buyer to rely on it, and that this reliance caused financial harm. Okay, it's a burden of proof is on the buyer to prove that fraud happened. This standard distinguishes fraud from simple non-disclosure, requiring evidence of deliberate deception. Okay, and it's really hard to prove that. That's really a hard thing, right? So, but it could. Okay, it could. That's the key. It could. Unfinished agreed repairs can lead to breach of contract. All right, this I see this a lot in our industry. Okay, when a home seller agrees in the purchase contract to complete specific repairs before closing, but fails to do so, it may constitute a breach of contract. In such cases, the buyer can seek legal action to recover the costs of the fulfilled repairs. This legal claim is based on the seller not fulfilling a specific obligation outlined in the agreement. This requires a little bit of stage setting. The contract gives the legal ground for what can be done between that transaction, okay? Buyer and seller, their agent cannot do anything outside of what that contract says, okay? Can't do it, okay? We can only do legally what the contract has bound us to do. We are also at the mercy of helping to fulfill what the contract has told us to do. So anything you ask us to do that the contract does not state, we cannot do. And that is not a violation of the fiduciary responsibility that we owe our clients. We have a contract. We have to abide by it. Now, when we get into the legalities of this, you got to understand is when you have like an inspection done and there's a request for repairs made and the seller agrees to make those repairs, they have to do that. They have to complete them. If you don't complete them, it is literally a breach of the contract. And then the client, whoever was the party that did the offense, has a case to go forward and bring suit against the other party. Agents, Know your contracts. I cannot stress this enough. I see this all the time. Most agents, and hopefully you're not this, most agents haven't even read their contract. And if they have read it, they don't read it regularly. They just fill out the blanks, and they send it to their client, and then they don't sit down and explain the contract to the client. Guys, take 30 minutes when you have a contract written up and explain the entirety to your client. You are going to save yourself a whole lot of heartache when they understand, when you come to situations where there's an inspection, there's an agreed upon counter, and then this is your obligations and what that looks like and what this means if we go to litigation or mitigation and who's the responsible party, how that all pays out. These are conversations you need to have because they come to this often. When you get to a contract and there's all this emotion involved, the tension gets real. Know your contracts. Buyer and seller out there, read your contract. Understand the legalities of it because once everything's signed, we can legally only do what that contract says. And let me end here. Another thing for you buyers and sellers out there listening, the ability for your agent to do anything else for you once the property has closed is over. Once that contract closes out, once the home is closed and the transaction takes place, the agent can do nothing else. So at that closing table, exchange numbers and contact information with each party, because at that point, that's all between the buyer and the seller. The agent's ability to do anything ends at closing. There's nothing else we can do. They can ask us our opinions, but we legally cannot do anything. We cannot compel the other party to act. We can't compel the other agent or brokerage to do anything. There's no agreement in place that gives us the ability to do that. Nothing we can do. We can make an appeal, but it doesn't mean they have to. That's why that contract and the legality and the verbiage inside those contracts matter. That's why they matter. That's just an education on contract. I will say this. You would fall into less legal issues if you took time to know your contract and help your clients know their contracts that they're signing. You really would. All right. Let's get back to this. Backing out of a home sale can lead to lawsuits. Oh boy, I see this one. Oh boy. Cold feet, they just went out, whatever. Look. Let me just read this statement. Sorry, my voice is getting cracked. Once a home sale contract is signed, both buyer and seller, okay, are legally bound to its terms. Okay? I mean, you want out? It's going to have a clause for that in there, guys. It's going to tell you what happens if you try to get out. Okay? It's not just like, I signed this document, I'm actually kind of done. I'm going to leave and we're just going to go with it, right? No. If a seller cancels the sale without a valid legal reason within the contractual terms, the buyer may have grounds to sue for breach of contract, and vice versa. Such lawsuits can result in financial damages for the seller, even if the decision to withdraw was made in good faith. There is legal grounds, okay? The contract tells them what the legal grounds are on how they can pursue the other party that is in breach. Know your contract. Hey, Megan, thank you for being here. It says, my home buyer called me 3 days after closing to tell me I needed to replace the water heater. Hey, yeah, that's good. Yeah. I mean, this happens all the time. Honestly, Megan, yeah, man, if people could be on our side of the aisle as real estate agents, they would understand what we go through. I mean, it's unreal. It is unreal. I mean, they think somehow we are responsible for everything that can go wrong, and we are also able to fix everything that goes wrong. We can't. Just can't do that. Megan, yeah, haha. She had 5 hours in inspection time, too. I blocked her. Yeah. Probably a good call, Megan, to be honest. I mean, sometimes you got to do that. You hate, like, getting rid of people, but, man, sometimes there's nothing else you can do. Matter of fact, we have a situation kind of going on. And we have multiple situations, but there's one where the buyer bought the property. Everything was disclosed. It was very evident that there was this issue with this particular item of the house. signed off on it, everything, right? Close on the house. And now, and months later, I will add, we are like 3 or 4 months after closing. And this particular individual is calling both agents, trying to get the seller's information, calling all of us brokers, talking about suits and all this kind of stuff to come back and fix this problem. I mean, burning up the phone. I mean, just calling our admins and secretaries. I mean, anybody and everybody that will listen. And it's like, at this point, I mean, we're all just telling us, like, just go get an attorney. I mean, we're fine with that. Matter of fact, I hope you kind of do, because like it would actually help this process along a little bit. So yeah, good call, Megan. Good call. That's great. All right, let's continue, guys. I mean, these are all great conversations because, man, this is where we get into trouble the most. This is where it all comes from. This is where it's at. And this is where buyers and sellers get into trouble. All right. Boundary disputes often lead to lawsuits. Okay, yeah. Let me just read this and I'll give you a story. Disagreements over property lines or encroachments can become contentious when parties cannot reach a mutual resolution. These conflicts may escalate to litigation involving legal claims over ownership rights or land use. Such disputes are a common cause of real estate lawsuits and can be costly and time-consuming to resolve. Oh boy, can they ever. Okay, land and boundary disputes, this is extremely common, you know, and this happens all the time. The buyer doesn't want to get a survey. They don't want to pay for it. The seller doesn't want to pay for their survey. The buyer just goes, I'm okay with it. The deed says it. I'm good with it, right? Yeah, you're good with it until you're not, right? And when I first got into real estate, and this is my very first transaction, mind you, okay? Very first transaction. It is in a very rural area of our state. And I'm in Kentucky, guys. Okay? Now, Kentucky has some very rural areas. And there is land that has been owned by people for over 100 years. Okay? The deeds date back to, 1900s. And it has the boundaries in it. Buyer and seller, nobody wanted to do a survey on this property. They didn't want to pay for it. Of course, fortunately, I was so embedded through school and my broker and everything telling me, don't ever say it's okay. Advise them. Be on record of telling them, get a survey, get a survey, get a survey, and do it over and over and over again. And then get a document and have them sign and say they waive the right to a survey. And I did all that. And they closed on the property, right? And you all know where this is going. I mean, this is not even that difficult. But here's the funny part, is they bought the property, they closed on the property. Well, guess what? Joe, Bob, Billy, Tom, the neighbor, okay? All right, that's not really his name. I just inserted every single name that you would, Joe, Bob, Billy, Tom, okay? That's what I'm going to call people that I don't know their names that do something crazy. We're going to call them Joe, Bob, Billy, Toms. All right, so Joe, Bob, Billy, Tom own the next door neighbor property, the property next door to this, it's like 50 acres or whatever. Every so often, he would get his nice little backhoe tractor thing and nudge this big boulder on the back corner of the property, just a few feet. He's been doing this for over 30 years. 30 years. So then he built this building on that back corner of the property. All right, so now he's got an encroachment issue. And then the new buyer, the new owner of this property, goes back there and wants to build this big barn or whatever, and they're wanting to put in like these big grain silos and all this kind of stuff. Goes in there and they're measuring out the back line, and they're putting these big domed like things in there, and each one has a set amount of feet. So they immediately find out that back line, because it was kind of like this weird wedge property, it's really big at the front and kind of tapered smaller in the back. And so they're putting all the equipment and stuff in the back and then servicing the front of the lot. Okay, I'm probably too much information, but the point is, each one of these were a set amount of feet. So then they started designing this out, and they realized, wait a minute, like, why are we at the edge of our property already? So they went back to their deed, and they found out the measurement back there, according to the deed, said X amount of feet. So they ran the line. They're like, wait a minute, this boulder is like, 100 and something feet, 200 feet or whatever it was off the actual line. And then this guy had a building there that he built, 10, 15 years ago. So you can only imagine the issue there, okay? Then what? Guess what would have happened though if they would have either A, held the seller to doing a survey, or B, had a survey done themselves and negotiated that into the purchase price. They would have known this. They would have known this. So now they have a big dispute on their hands and there's a big problem. And this happens all the time. Surveys. Get a survey. Undisclosed zoning violations create legal risks for buyers. When a property has zoning or land use violations that are not disclosed before purchase, the buyer may face significant legal and financial consequences. These issues can lead to disputes over property use, costly compliance measures, or even litigation if the violations threaten the buyer's intended use of investment. Early legal review and due diligence can help identify such problems before a transaction is completed. Knowing your zoning, like doing your due diligence to understand what the zoning means, and then understanding what the buyer's intent to use that property is key. You as a listing agent, understanding zoning is key. All right? Know your zone. This could absolutely get you into trouble. Professional guidance prevents costly disclosure errors. Professional guidance. Hiring, and this is where I so appreciate this article, right? They validate the importance of a real estate agent. And this is where we are worth our weight in gold. An agent that understands these type of things and can protect their client from these things is worth it. And many other reasons why they're worth it, but these are very good ones, right? Because what people don't realize is like on all those AI scenarios, like you talk about all these people that sold properties, they used AI and all this kind of stuff. They had an easy selling transaction. And what you don't hear is all the reports of where it went bad. And you're going to hear a lot of them. You're going to start hearing more and more of those. As more and more people lean into AI, they're going to get into more and more legal problems. And do you understand the financial consequences for each one of these litigations or these issues that I just addressed? We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, guys. Hiring experienced real estate agents and inspectors can help home and sellers avoid mistakes in required property disclosures. These professionals understand state and local laws. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. All the time. It's embedded in us. It's taught to us on a constant basis. Yes, we do. Ensuring sellers meet legal obligations and reduce the risk of disputes after closing. Their expertise also helps identify and address issues before listing, improving the property's marketability. Worth their weight in gold, man. Direct questions can uncover hidden property issues. Home sellers are not always required to disclose certain non-physical issues, such as past deaths or neighborhood nuances, unless asked directly. However, they cannot lie if a buyer poses a specific question in writing. So just know that's the case in a lot of states. Know your state laws. This approach can help buyers reveal important information and provide legal protection of misrepresentation provide legal protection if misrepresentation occurs. There we go. Sorry. All right. I mean, very, very good conversation, guys. Very, very good. I've already reached 9:34 a.m. Eastern time. I've got to jump onto another meeting. So we will not get to the third article. I only did 2 articles today. Really, I just honed in on this one, but I thought this was a great one. I let me know in the comments what you guys thought, if this was helpful. And honestly, guys, I know as real estate agents, you hear this kind of stuff all the time, but the way the brain works, like we forget most of the things we hear, and that's why we got to constantly hear it over and over again. And we're all guilty of getting comfortable and falling into the trap that we get negligent on some of these things. And we get caught up in the moment and we're busy. And we get into legal trouble or ethical trouble because we get relaxed or we get busy. So sometimes we need to take a step back and remind ourselves that there are some major legal consequences for getting relaxed on these items. And we really do need to take the time to keep it in the forefront of our minds, because when we are getting pushback about our relevancy and our value in an industry that wants to say that we're not, these items that we just discussed are the anchor and the foundation that proves your value. Because I will tell you this, any buyer or seller that has fallen into one of these issues and they had a good agent representing them through it, understands your value. And they will come back, they will recommend you, they will refer people to you, and so forth. So these type of things might be boring to talk about. It might be very boring to sit down and read your contracts and all your documents that you share. But I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to do this every single month. I encourage you to sit down, go through line by line that contract. If there is something in that contract you do not understand, that you cannot articulate it correctly to a buyer or seller, go find and ask questions and know it. If you really want to get down to value, this is it, guys. This is it. Know your contracts. Know your fiduciary responsibility to your clients, and ultimately try to protect the consumer. Okay? All right. Very good. I do thank you guys. Appreciate you guys for being here, listening to me talk like always. My goal, I just want to make sure that you guys are getting value. I don't mind pushback. If this is like redundant or you're getting tired of it, let me know. If you're finding value of it, let me know. I appreciate you guys. I don't take it for granted that you take time out of your schedules to come here and listen to me talk. I don't. I greatly, greatly appreciate that. I really, really do. I do this because I love this industry. I love working with agents. I love helping agents. And I love educating myself and staying on point. And I love more than anything doing that with others. I so appreciate it. And to be honest, I never dread doing this live show. I just don't. I wake up in the morning, it's part of my routine. I hate when I don't get to. Like it's really fun when I come here and there's chat and there's people that I know and they come back and I recognize your name because you've come here before and you engage, and I love that. I love the community that we can develop here. I want you guys to know that I might not have all the answers, but you're welcome to ask me anything and everything you need. I will try to answer the best of my ability. If I don't know, I'll research it. I'll help you out there. I'm here for you. I champion you. I'm very proud to call myself a real estate realtor, whatever you want to call us. I'm proud of that fact. I think it's an honor that we get to do what we do in this country, is sell something physically real, God-made land. It is an honor. It's a privilege to get to do that. And we don't want to take it for granted ever. It is a blessing to get to do that. All right. With all that being said, I will be back here doing this again tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, where you're watching me now, and I do appreciate it. That is your real estate brief for today. If you found this helpful, please consider hitting the like button to tell YouTube you'd like to see more of this type of content, and consider subscribing and following me on TikTok, Instagram, everywhere else to join a community of real estate agents that are focused on building a business that is relationship focused first. There's more I can be talking about. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. See you then, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. See you then. Take care.